to the whoop-de-wop.
You know, drifting off and getting
We're
away from
going to
that.
keep going over it, and I'm going to keep twisting your words
Whoop-de-wop
to remind everybody
is
Oh
we
my
don't owe
God.
white people. We do not owe white people
whoop-de-wop.
shit.
is a place.
I run the risk,
Whoop-de-wop.
and it's not my channel, so I will just drop this fucking link.
Just curious. You know
Yo,
who's your
hand me the whoop-de-wop.
Well, I know it's an Indiana
Yo,
thing.
yo, you got
Yeah,
some
but do
money?
you know
We're
what
going
Hoosier
to the
is?
whoop-de-wop.
I actually don't.
Okay.
Yo,
got
we
something to
can
do with me.
throw some cool
And
whoop-de-wops.
from a Hoosier, you're going to get certain things that are going to happen. And
Well, I
walk
do
down
know
the
at one
coast,
point
though, go
Indiana
grab that
was
shit
like
right
the
quick.
center of the
She
clan.
was like, cool. And she already know to get my dough. So,
One day into her 10-day break from the internet, and the world just feels like such a better place. Like logic is coming back and reason is finally with us now that the spokesperson, the mouthpiece for the absolute craziness that has ensued since Charlie Kirk died, Candace Owens, is finally taking a break to mourn her friend. To really mourn him. She's finally reached the acceptance stage, or as I would say it, the heat for her crazies is just gone a little bit too much. She's decided to disappear for 10 days so that she can really accept what has happened. Now, today, it's been a while. It's been a while since we've talked about Candace, and there is so much going on, but there have been some wild theories. And like always, she is dominating the internet. I don't know if you guys saw, she was officially banned once again from Australia. Okay, that ban came into place. The Supreme Court ruled she cannot come in. And whilst that brings up a lot of questions of free speech, and if it's right, I think it's also an indicator for just how far gone she is. Okay, I know a lot of Jews have been banned as well, so we're not going to get into that right now. But she's been banned, and allegedly she's also dropped the Brigitte Macron case. Remember that case that was getting her in so much trouble after the president of France decided to sue her back, and they had to provide evidence that his wife is a woman, which again, are we to know if that's true or not? I don't know. But we are going to talk today about a bunch of the crazy theories surrounding Candace and what is going on, why she has gone so completely crazy in the last few months and specifically weeks. She's even coming after Trump, and I think that's all super duper intentional. Let's dive into some of the content. I want to hear your thoughts on which theory is the most correct, because Candace, of all the theories that are out there, the only thing that we know to definitely be true is that Candace has lost her marbles. Yep, she's lost her marbles. But first, are you subscribed to this page? It's totally free. All you have to do is press the join button. We would love to have you here. We know that 85% of you are not yet following the channel, and this channel depends on you following us, not just liking and sharing and commenting, because we've created the most amazing community over here in such a quick amount of time. But we really feel that if you appreciate the content, maybe somebody else can do it. And the best way to grow is by you subscribing to the page. So thank you in advance for doing that for us. And for those asking about the merch, meerak.com, you can buy that mug and some other amazing and awesome pieces, if I may say so myself. Let's dive right in. Okay, so theory number one, which I absolutely love, is about Candace secretly being in love with Candace. That's a good theory. About Candace secretly being in love with Charlie. That is a wonderful theory that I read online. Theory number two, she's trying her hardest to vie and support the next president. Okay, she realizes Trump's up, okay, in the next 2 years. And so she's basically turning her back completely on him so that she can go after the more anti-Israel camp, which, if J.D. Vance wins in the next election, will be the big camp. And so she's going for that. There's another crazy theory, which is talking about how she's trying to unite the left and the right, because actually, in reality, she started off as a leftist. Did you know that she had a doxing site to begin with? That was her first thing. And people are saying that maybe she's making the left comeback. That's super interesting. We've got a bunch of other theories, which are also just a little bit crazy. My personal theory is that this woman is super attention seeking, and she just can't help make everything about her. But all three theories are possible at this point. So let's dive into this video. Let me know what you think.
Yes, I am calling on the left and the right to unify and to solve what happened on September 10th. Okay? All of us, left and right. The entire world needs to wake up right now And I believe that Charlie Kirk's murder has provided us an opportunity to do so, to stop the left and right BS. And I do want to shout out my lefties here, because I felt like I was one of the only people on the right who was anti-vax before it was cool. Like none of my kids were vaccinated and people thought it was wacky. But before I got there, the lefty moms, left stream moms were actually the ones that were like very on it with like, what did these products? And that was like a weird place. I didn't kind of fit in conservative lands. I am telling you, this is not a battle between left and right. Left and right, we are realizing something more sinister happened. Now, usually we go, was he on the left? Was he on the right? Because that's the bait. The bait is to make me as a conservative hate you if you were on the left. And if you were on the left, the goal is to make you hate Candace because it allows them to operate in broad daylight. This sport has been created, left versus right, that it's just the left. It's all left leaning. No. They work with both the left and the right. Yeah, and sadly, the people that I am in partnership with on demanding more answers are not even people who were friends with Charlie Kirk. They're just like, obviously this is wrong and this is weird and I'm on the left. She's allied with the left. Yep, I am allied with the left and the right. Jamie Lee Curtis, she's on the left, right? And she was crying over this. Totally different politics, the awakening that's happening right now, left and right coming together. Murphy writes, I'm a progressive. The question I have is from an LGBTQ person. I owe you an apology, Candace. As a former Dem, I am ashamed to admit that I've said some awful things about you. You know what, Rachel? I'll apologize back. Because I was also partially blinded and I thought that it was just the left. You know, I was taking that low-hanging fruit. The emails were like, you should look into this Governor Cox because he likes trans. So they're open and close. That feels to me always just like Fed bait, left versus right, right?
I just want to remind you all, that one of the main people who created the enormous left versus right divide was Candace Owens. She was at the forefront of the right versus the left, majorly hating on the left nonstop. But now, for some reason, in the wake of this whole thing, she is pandering directly to them. And there are many reasons for this. We'll break that down in a second.
Trans people, so it has to be him. Like I said, MAGA, my dad's extra MAGA. That's supposed to make people that are on the left go, oh my gosh, see, it's because of MAGA dad. It's like so ridiculous. And then on the right, you're supposed to go trans. It's a trans person. We've talked about this and da-da-da-da. This is not left or right. I don't care. Do stop trying to make this a trans issue or right. That whole debate, it's low. It's not right versus left. It's not black versus white. It's not gay versus straight. It is good versus evil. And
it's Jew versus American. Yeah, that's what she's trying to say here.
Truth versus lie. Come together and fight this evil. Yes, we did this left and right. We are fighting opposite sides of the same coin. It's us versus them. The elites versus the rest of us.
If we're being honest, this video goes on and on and on and on and on, and all you're seeing in it is her just going on about left and right. We need to unite, good versus evil, left and right. Now, I mean, besides the fact that this is a little bit obviously off, because she is, again, the face of the right-wing movement that has hated on the left nonstop, her suddenly being like, oh, trans, what is she talking about? But clearly she has decided, okay, and all of the theories back this up, she has decided that her current base is just not big enough, and therefore she wants to become the face of the new movement. You see, I genuinely believe that Candace has become totally and completely addicted to the attention and to the constant people looking up to her as the movement. And she's furious that she is no longer the main voice and leader of the right-wing movement. She's a fringe voice. So she's trying to create a new one in which she unifies the left and the right against the left and the white, the left and the right against some sort of evil. That evil, obviously, is the Jews, okay? And that we know because of her religious background. But she's doing this thing. She's totally shifting. Every single piece of her content up until this point has literally been hating on the left, hating on the right, on the left, exposing how the right is the best. Hating on the left, the right is the best. Now she's saying, no, they made us hate each other. Bitch, please. You are a huge part of the left versus the right hating. Don't stop talking about they made you hate each other. You made the hatred happen. A huge part of it. Take tons of responsibility with all of your right-wing mentality, which again, I was for. I thought there was a lot of logic to it. You made the divide. You were part of it. Don't talk about them making the divide. But now, not only is she saying that, she's saying things like, we, the blue collar. I mean, does she think we're stupid? Candace Owens is unbelievably wealthy, married to an unbelievably wealthy man, one of the most important voices, the loudest voices, okay, one of the biggest celebrities in the world. And she's talking about us as if like, we're the blue collar, we're against the elites. She's talking about her being against the elites. Like, she's lost her mind. Then she says like, yeah, Macron spoke about me and Trump called me, and it's her against the elites. So this is my theory, okay? Theory number one that I believe is probably true. She really wants to be somewhat more in the administration next time around, and she knows that if she goes all out on this kind of hating, she can get into the JD Vance thing, because we know that JD Vance is continuing to be more and more of a problem. He's definitely not part of the Republican pro-Israel movement, and Trump's going to be out in 2 years. So she got Trump in, she got all the power. Now she's like, let me turn on him, because the more enemies I can create, the more supporters I get who come behind me. That's one theory. She wants to be more involved in the next elections, and she wants to be an important voice. Then second theory, she has figured out that actually she can really grow if she figures out how to unite the left and the right by pretending to be this voice that had nothing to do with the division between the two of them. So she's trying to unite them so she can create an even bigger theory. But the third theory, which I love and I think is absolutely amazing, is this theory that I saw of somebody that said that Candace was madly in love with Charlie. She was madly in love with him for all of these years, and she was furious that he refused to marry her because of her skin color, and that he married Erica, you know, a beautiful white woman, about as white as they get, because Charlie just never saw her that way, and it made her mad and it hurt her. And so she went for the whitest other guy that she could find. She married him in like 12 days over Skype, which is a super weird thing to do. Maybe 16 days. They got engaged in 16 days. That's a very weird thing to do if you just come from a normal family and you're a celebrity. She quickly marries this guy. To me, it sounds like a rebound. And now that Charlie's died, she's getting all of her anger and frustration out at Erica. And to me, that makes so much more sense. Like, oh, Candace is just a jealous girl. She's just a jealous girl. That's what all of this is about. She's a jealous girl. She's against the supremacy. She knows that Charlie in his heart loved and supported Israel. So she's just trying to make that, to destroy his legacy. It's like a vendetta. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Look, it's a little bit far-fetched, yes. And I'm not really a conspiracy theorist, but we don't actually know. None of us know what's
Welcome to Stanley versus the World, the evening edition. This is fascinating. I did not know that there was like a gossip queen who talks politics. So everyone, please make sure you hit the like button. And if you are new, please subscribe and see if you like it. If you do, share it out. Please.
really going down. But what we can see is that she's evidently trying to connect the left and the right, whilst basically washing herself of the division that she created, talking about the elites as if she has nothing to do with the elites, smashing and trashing on Trump as much as she can, literally not caring about Erica and Turning Point USA, making this whole Charlie thing about her. Conveniently, by the way, the whole Brigitte Macron thing has disappeared. No one's talking about that anymore when she's in massive hot water. And we know that she does this thing. She comes out with these big exposés, like Kamala Harris is in black or whatever. They're massive. They're enormous. They gain tons of attention. And then she quickly moves on to the newest expose. And she just moves around to make all and everything about Candace. And that is how Candace works. If it's because she's vying for, I don't know, president or the leader or politically in the next few steps, that could be, and she wants to kind of create a bigger base, more supporters. If she could only get from the right and she only has the anti-Semitic right, then maybe she should get the anti-Semitic left. Why shouldn't she enjoy all of the people? Despite the fact that clearly she's massively behind the division between the two of them. Anyways, I think that there's a lot of potential things that are going on here. But what's clear about all of this, that Candace is not just, you know, a really good mom sitting in a basement trying to get down to the bottom of a murder. Besides the fact that she's come up with such crazy theories, like the bee theory, if any of you are watching, that is totally insane. She's come up with that. She's managing to make all of this about how like Trump is really behind the genocide so that he can, I don't know, make tons of money from Gaza. She's literally pushing as far as she can. In fact, even Tucker Carlson hasn't come out against her, obviously, but some of the text things, the text that she's exposed, we've got Tucker Carlson saying, you know, texts aren't really a normal indicator of what's really going on. It can just be a place for people to privately vent. It's not actually factual. We've got Josh Hammer, who's basically come out really intensely against her, exposing her. And we've just got so much drama around her. It's no surprise that she needs a 10-day break. A 10-day break. And I have to say, I'm very grateful for her taking that break, and I hope that it becomes a 10,000-day break. Not because I want anything bad to happen to her, but maybe her microphone will break or something along those lines, and she can just disappear into the hole that she came from, and she can leave all of us away from her crazy things. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be the case at the moment. It seems to be that she is just going to continue coming up with more insane theories. Now, whilst we're talking about this, I actually want to point something that's very important. Candace's strength is in manipulation. That's where she really, really excels beyond anything. And the way she does it is by bringing in elements of truth and warping them with lies. Okay. So she'll say things like, oh, I went to Israel and I saw the Muslim quarter. Okay. Which is true. But I also saw how the Jews put the Muslims into a quarter, which is obviously not true. If you don't know the history, the Jewish quarter was split evenly between Christians, Armenians, Jews, and Muslims as an agreement that they would all agree to so that everyone can have a part. It wasn't that the Jews put the Muslims into a quarter. That's not how it works at all. But she'll take truth and mix it in with lies, which is what makes her manipulation so confusing, because she then manages to pull out pieces of truth, say, look, I have evidence of this text, but all the rest then becomes questionable, and you're never exactly sure if she's actually really honest and amazing as a journalist, or if she's somebody who just really manages to make everything so dramatic that we can't help but watch. She's like a car crash, which stops all the traffic. She's literally lighting herself on fire. Nobody can help themselves. They just want to watch, and it's so compelling. And whilst we said that we're going to do less videos on Candace, and I think we pulled through, we've done a whole lot less videos than we were doing at the beginning, it's still important for us to remember and to watch and to see and to say, okay, this woman, what is she doing? And why is she doing it? And what can we learn from that? And how can we make sure that we don't fall for it and we know how to stand up against it when it comes for us? She's calling out people who are my friends. I know Josh Hammer personally. He's somebody that I text, not on a regular basis, but I know. And she's coming after everyone, it seems. And I think it's more and more important every single day that we see and call her out for the things that she lies about, that she's unashamed about. But we also remember that this is a person behind the screen, a person who doesn't seem to be super well upstairs at the moment. And that, my friends, is the end of this Candace episode. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Well, that was entertaining, if nothing else. Let's see. Oh, you only had to go 15 miles? Damn. Well, you've had a good day. What you cooking tonight there, Richard? Stubborn and not open-minded. I'm stubborn and not open-minded. Whoa, you'll never get on a jury that way, sir. I am stubborn. Dude, I am stubborn. You said that? Holy shit. Wow. I am. Richard, would you please describe yourself for the lawyers? Well, my best qualities. I am stubborn and not open-minded. My two best qualities. Wow. All right. Well, I don't know. That's shit. That's gotta be a show title. Hold on. Let me go back up here and find it. Yes, that will be tomorrow's show title. They asked, are you stubborn or open-minded? And you said, neither. No, it's gotta be a show title. And yes, I'm gonna twist the words. Of course I am. So anyway, let's I've got two news stories just that kind of I thought would be interesting, and it'll be short. U.S. appeals court. So Trump apparently is going to be able to send troops into Oregon or into Portland, lifting a lower court's block. Trump administration argued the guard was needed to protect an ICE facility after months of protests, incited assaults on federal officers, while City of Portland and State of Oregon officials said demonstrations were largely peaceful. So let's see. The decision allows troops to protect federal property in Portland while litigation continues. So more than likely, this will be appealed to the Supreme Court. I think there's already a request from Trump. I mentioned it earlier to send guard into Chicago. So it'll be interesting. And this is good news. And I thought it would happen this way. Comey's lawyers moved to dismiss case, first battle in the prosecution. Former FBI chief argues his prosecution is the result of Trump's personal spite and should be barred. And I think he's got an excellent case, given that I don't know whether it was a truth or how that works. It was either truth or X, where he goes, "Hey, Pam Bondi, you need to prosecute these people." I think that's an open and shut argument right there. And if it's not, there's a huge problem we have when the president is like, "You need to, let's get moving," and your name is literally in the president's tweet or truth or whatever it was. Dude, that's malicious. And he's been talking about it for years. So we'll see what happens. But if they can't figure out that this is malicious, so I guess this is what we're going to do next. I left off at this is a video I wanted to check out just because it sounded interesting, and they started off good, but it gets weird and misogynist, quite frankly, at some point. But I saw clips on what was it, Passport OG's channel. So I actually have the raw footage, as it were, and we'll listen to it. If it gets boring, I got one more thing, and it's not going to be a long show tonight, folks. I'm kind of tired. That housework will whip your ass.
Join me for this. I want to thank everyone who gave likes ahead of time. I know at least one person in Canada has been on me about when are you going to interview Dr. Neal. So so I have Dr. Neal backstage. So I'm going to play my intro, and I want to respect his time and mine. And on the other side, I'm going to give a few introductory points, and then I'm going to jump in, and we're going to talk about his book, Beyond Death and Jail. All right, I'll see you on the other side of my Curtis School introduction.
I kind of like the way he sets up his show, though. Maybe there's some lessons to learn here. Besides,
where did this topic come from? So I'm going to admit that because of where I come from, see, in this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not everybody is privy to the same information.
That we will rush to finish things that are important so we can do things that are not. And I believe it's an immaturity there. People just don't understand that, life isn't about having fun all the time. You have to have fun sometimes, I agree. But as an adult, there's time where you have to just say, okay, listen, I got to get down to work right now. And I don't think enough of us value that time or really understand the fruits of that labor. Somehow we think things are just going to be without that kind of effort. And culturally, there's a deficiency there. That's why I always say that there's no political solution for cultural deficiencies.
So, where did this topic?
That's actually a really good point there. There are no cultural solutions to political deficiencies. I'm sorry, no political solutions to cultural deficiencies. I agree with that. Politics is downstream from culture. So that's a good one. I'm going to have to use that quote.
Come from. So I'm going to admit that because of where I come from. See, in this world, we're all living in different worlds, and not
I
everybody
think
is
it's
privy
from
to the
another
same
show. He's
information.
just using a clip. It'll clear up.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Big Discussions, my original channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you are on the replay gang, please let me know what you think about any of this. So today I have a special guest. I do a lot of thinking these days, and if I could spend the rest of my days writing and interviewing interesting people about their works, that's what I would do. And so for the last couple of months, the master teacher calls it punching the clock. I've been doing what I call filler content, covering what's going on. But I've been, in the meantime, setting up interviews here, and I want to focus on other authors and their writings. And so today, Dr. Ronald Neal is going to join me to talk about his book, Beyond Death and Jail. Please make this interactive. If you guys have comments or thoughts or questions in the chat, I have my questions. For the time that we have, I'll entertain those that pertain to the topic. So Dr. Neal is backstage, so I'm going to be quick with my opening monologue. I'm going to open this by saying, and we're going to allude to this in our discussion, most of you know about my credentials. I introduced myself as Dr. Dunbar. My background is in the hard sciences, so this is the University of Michigan's medical campus. And when you look at this, think about any university, any institution of higher learning across the country. You have a section of the campus that deals with biomedical research, the hard sciences, physics. The University of Michigan has a very well respected business school, an engineering school, a law school, and there are also schools for the humanities and religious studies and literature and art. I didn't really know what my peers were learning in those areas. Okay, I knew what I was doing. I was dealing with molecular biology and proteins and drugs. But as I progressed in my education, I really didn't understand what the humanities were all about, and what religious studies and women's studies and how those would apply in the real world. And I gained a better understanding of that after being in the YouTube streets and listening to Dr. T.S. Johnson and listening to Dr. Ronald Neal, and as we'll describe how these studies actually influence the population on the outside afterwards, because they do influence the population, policy, politics, everything. Another piece I'll throw in here is the generations. I'm a Gen Xer. Dr. Neal is a Gen Xer. And in reading his book, I've really come to understand more so than I did before that we've lived through some things. We've lived through a bunch of changes, much of which, as Gen Xers, we did not understand. I did not understand. And I think even the elder generation, the boomers, the Black boomers in particular, we've been living through changes that
What's up, CK?
we're starting to see the fruits
Let
of
me
now.
stop this right
but we've
here.
been seeing-
He actually kind of sounds like me. I don't have an advanced degree. I actually did start a master's degree in public administration, and I hated school so much. I was like, no thanks. And I actually scholarshiped my way into getting a master's degree, but I was done with school. But people discount, if not outright shit on the humanities. Do both. You actually can. And I had years ago when I think I was in 8th grade, maybe 7th grade. I had to have a very office surgery. I'd stepped on a piece of glass and it was just embedded, and it had scarred over. And so, some general surgeon, it was just office surgery. It wasn't that serious. But this dude and I were talking during the surgery, and dude had the weirdest degree I'd ever heard. He got a Bachelor of Arts in chemistry and then went to Harvard Medical School. He was Harvard undergrad, Harvard Medical School. The dude was just really interesting. He fished. He just did more than chemistry and medicine. He had outside interests. And I'm kind of the same way. You got to do both. People who do one thing or another, I don't know. I have a huge, I grew up a reader. Chemistry was my thing, but it wasn't my only thing. So anyway, I salute this dude. He did more than molecular biology.
The fruits of these things for the last 10 to 15 years, but we didn't really understand things that were being put in place from the 70s onward, both politically, institutionally, in terms of our churches and our communities just in general. We did a lot of this we lived through, but we didn't know we were living through it or what it all meant. And the last item I'm going to show before I bring Dr. Neal up is this one, because I think he really touches upon this in his book. And a lot of people are talking
What's this,
about
Mikey?
This now.
You mean Mike 123?
From blackdemographics.com. And it's the Black marital rate tracker. Okay. I'm gonna ask him about George Fraser at the end.
As the humanities American man, sure, why not?
In the
you got to use words to troll, I guess.
Okay, and then something happened. Okay, something happened with both black men and black women.
I don't know who he is. I don't watch CT shows. Maybe once or twice a week.
The marital rates just went down.
Hopefully,
I just wanted
Mikey
to use
is
those
okay.
as jumping off points for my discussion with Dr. Neal. And with that, I'm going to bring Dr. Ronald Neal up, and we're going to talk about his book, Beyond Death and Jail. Dr. Neal, welcome.
Hello. Welcome to you. I'm glad to be here, man. Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here and agreeing to talk about your great work here. I know that a lot of our audiences know who you are, but this will be valuable for the rest of the talk and for new people coming in.
By the way, apparently Big Discussions is from BGS's universe, which the master teacher, they call him the master teacher. That's weird in and of itself, to be honest.
We were talking about this before the stream started. You're from I thought it was South Carolina, but you're actually from Florida. Talk about your background a little bit.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in the state of Florida. Born in Tallahassee, Florida. Interestingly, so I was born in Tallahassee. I spent the first 5 years of my life in Chicago, Illinois. My mother is from Georgia. I have on my mother's side the matrifocal side of my family. This is a Georgia, Florida family, what have you. My father's side is in Mississippi and Illinois, Chicago side, and what have you. So the first 5 years of my life were in Chicago, and then we relocated to Miami, Florida, where I grew up. So grew up in Miami, Florida, from the time I was 5 to the eve of my 22nd birthday. And so I grew up in late 70s, the 80s, early 90s, and up until the time I graduated from college. I went to Florida International University, and then moved to Atlanta, Georgia, to attend a theological school. That was the Interdenominational Theological Center there, and then the story continues. I went to Nashville, and from Nashville, Tennessee, I went on to South Carolina. From South Carolina, North Carolina, where I presently am.
Okay. Did you since this comes up in the book, and you mentioned the term matrifocal, was your family headed by women, or were there male figures around, or what was your experience?
Yeah, so my family was led primarily by women, and I use matrifocal in the book, but I would say when I have in informal conversations with others, I'd say I grew up in a matriarchy, and that is so. My mother is one out of 10 children, and her parents, my grandparents, they had six males and 4 females, and my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, as the story was told to me, I never met him in my life. He walked away for whatever reason. Something happened. There was family stress. He could not sustain a family in South Georgia. It's one of the stories. It's a story that's very familiar with what that Black people are very familiar with. The man says, "I'm going to go to the store. I'll be back." Blah 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 blah. He goes, and he never returns. And so what happened was my mother's oldest brother became the head. He became the patriarch. That was my Uncle Carson. So he led the family during those years. But he became a military man. And he went off to the military and created his own family, created his own thing. He was based in Colorado Springs, and he created his own thing. So the rest of the family had to, they created their own. They did what they had to do and what have you. The rest of the males in the family, unfortunately, they never rose to prominent status, socially, economically, and what have you. And my uncles lived very tragic lives. And so by the time I came around, the women were the prominent figures. So there's my mother's oldest sister, Thelma, who is now deceased. My mother was right below her, and then she had 2 younger sisters, or what have you. So when I was coming along in the late 70s and early 80s, the women were holding everything together. And my uncle Carson, he was in a different part of the country, and as I was coming of age, he was just somewhere else. I never really had any relationship with him, but he was a prized male in our family, because he went to the military and he spent decades in the army, and he retired and he created a family, and his children did pretty well in life. You know what I mean? But where we were in South Florida, it was the women, all of my aunts, and what happened is that everyone who procreated tended to produce more females than males. So there are few males in my family, my mom's side. I never really had any contact. So my mother raised me. My parents were not married when I was born, and there was issues there with my father and everything like that. So my mother, she met him. My mom was a nurse professionally. He was a physician. They both met in Nashville, Tennessee, and she followed him to Chicago as he went and did his residency in Chicago and Cook County and what have you. And I guess she thought something was going to happen between them or what have you. And she wound up being pregnant.
The one question I have is, tell us a little bit about your background, and he's telling a lot. Be brief would be my suggestion.
So he didn't want.
I hate to sound horrible, but we just need to know a little bit. We don't need to know a lot.
To have kids. He didn't want to get married. My mom was the first generation of Black women to be a part of the wave of unmarried, single women raising children by themselves. And I would say that my mom chose to do that. That is, she was a nurse in the 60s and the 70s. She made good money. Things didn't work out between she and my father, and she had concluded that she could do it by herself. And that's basically what she did. Now, at the same time, I was embraced by my paternal grandmother, and she took ownership of me and what have you. And so I had contact with her even after we left, up until the time I was 7 years old when she died. So she died when I was 7, and then my paternal grandfather died when I was 8 years old. And so when my grandparents died, my paternal grandparents died, that kind of, it ended in many respects my relationship with my father. And so I grew up in Florida in this matriarchal condition with 3 other aunts in addition to my mother and other cousins who were female. Most of my cousins, the bulk of my cousins are female. And I'm one of the few males in my family. Kind of on our hands. One of the few. I'm the only one who went to college. I'm the only one who has gone as far as I've gone.
Wow. Okay. There was a lot there. One of the things that stood out to me was you said your mother. I'm gonna, walk gently here.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
No, I'm thinking about how in the last couple of years, what I've learned about how much of a landmine it is talking about what the women in our family chose to do, and what in the.
Let me make a point here. Let's see. Let me find it. Yeah. My father tells a story. There were 2 brothers and 3 girls, that my paternal grandparents had. And the 2 brothers, my father and his older brother, he told me a story probably several times over the year, but as recently as 2 weeks about adding indoor plumbing to the house, which is still there, by the way. I haven't been there fucking in probably the last time I can remember being at my grandparents' house, the one my father and uncle and aunts grew up in. It's probably been 40 years. I think the last time I was there, I was like 19, maybe 20, but probably 19. So anyway, he tells me a story, that same house, that I used to take a bath in. It didn't have indoor plumbing for a good bit of their childhood. And to get indoor plumbing, they had to get like city sewage across the road. And I guess back then it wasn't paved. By the time I can recall, it was paved, but they had to dig a trench from one side of the road to the other, all the way to where the bathroom was. And to afford it, they picked cotton. My grandfather, my father, and my uncle. So you might have 10 kids, but you know, if there were males, especially, you know, they were going to be, you know, working in the fields or something like that. You know, I can only speak for my family.
The changeover in the decision making from previous generations from them versus what's come forward. So that goes back to my little monologue about something changed from the 1970s onward.
Yeah.
So and talking about what women decide to do with their bodies is a very, very, you know, that's a prickly pear.
Yeah, most definitely. And I
Hey,
can say
Fred,
this
it's
without
interesting you bring up sharecropping. I mean, my father's father, my grandfather, he did some sharecropping, and somehow or another, we wound up, and I say we, I was little when this happened, but I do remember it. They wound up being able to buy the land off the person who owned it. And it so happened that the person who owned it was black. So this is down in South Georgia. So, you know, there was sharecropping, but, you know, in this particular case, it worked out.
qualms or hesitation. Yeah. My mother believed that she could raise me by herself without my father. Because my dad did not want to get married. He didn't want to have a kid. You know, he was in his residency at Cook County Hospital. And this is a story I was given, you know. Later in life, I tried to get his side of the story, but that's another story. But I would say this, and you know, because I live with my mother, so she was.
Well,
She
Richard,
was a nurse.
apparently
My
God
mother
has
went to
done it
FAMU, Florida,
for
agricultural,
millennia.
you know, mechanical university. She was the first person in her family to go to college. She came from a farm, rural family, out of Florida, Georgia. You know, one child out of 10 kids. You know, and yeah, so she went to college and she did well when she
Walter?
was a nurse in
You
Chicago
mean
and
Walter
what have
White?
you. That there are more layers to the Chicago story. I'm gonna give you the short version. But yeah, so when my father, he didn't want to marry her. In fact, he wanted to have an abortion, you know, and she wanted to have me, you know, and so there was friction, there was tension there, and what have you. You know, though they had a relationship, you know, they were together for maybe about 5 or 6 years or what have you. And but she said, I would take care of you. I'd do it myself, you know. And she had family back home in Florida. When things in Chicago got kind of shaky, there was a lot of issues in Chicago in the 70s, man. Chicago
Who,
was,
me?
we were on the
No,
west side. We were on the west side at
I've
that
told
particular
that
time.
story about my
There's a
middle
south
name,
side story,
Kelvin.
but there's also the west side.
Welcome
You know?
aboard, Kelvin.
And you know, there was snowstorms. We got, you know, I watched my mom get robbed. You know, we got broken into. I mean, we were victims of robberies, which I was privy to. I remember them vividly, even as an adult. You know what I mean? And I watched my mom get her purse snatched. You know what I'm saying? Walking down the street. You know what I mean? And her sister said, "It's time for you to come back home." And she went back to Florida. She took me back to Florida, and I was with my. Matter of fact, my aunts. One of my mom's baby sister, she drove from Florida with her then boyfriend to Chicago, and picked me and my mom up, and we drove back. She was living in Orlando at the time, and then we stayed there for a minute. And then we moved to Miami, where her other sister was, and then we just ended up staying in Miami, and I wound up growing up in Miami.
Okay. Okay. I know a little bit about Miami, but we'll move on. What brought you to YouTube?
2020. It was yeah, man. You know, 2020 and COVID, George Floyd, the election, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and everything like that.
I'm not
And it
sure
was
what you're asking here. My circumstances were a little bit different, Richard. I was older, so I was 41 when my son was born. So, you tend to be a little bit more established the older you get. So, but I only had one also. So, I mean, yeah, every couple, is going to have to sit down and talk about what the priorities are that you want to pay for. But it wasn't hard with just one child. Now, the thing is to be honest, I was kind of also lucky that, my wife was 40 when my son was born. And I actually did want a second child. We got a boy. Let's try for a girl. But then, I really started thinking about it. And my son was a wonderful child. He didn't even cry that much. If my son was crying, there was something wrong. Like, I remember the first time and only time I can remember where we could not get him to sleep. And we were up all night. And, I wound up just kind of, hey, you go to sleep. I'll deal with it. Because I'm used to, I can stay awake as long as I need to stay awake. But we took him to the emergency room next morning, and the little boy had like a double ear infection. Which, first off, I'm like, how the fuck did you get that? But number two, no wonder you were up all night. He was like, God damn, a double ear infection. I guess your head's hurting, huh? But he tended to be, he didn't cry much. This is 20 how old was he? 2006 versus 50 years before that. I don't ever ask questions about how did you afford children. They just did. They made ends meet, the term. What's up, Solid Snake? I'm going to look for this dude's channel. Might be interesting to watch some at some point.
Was mainly the election, and I had a lot to say. You have Black Lives Matter stuff going on. I had a lot to say. I was frustrated with the media, mainstream liberal media, and the way in which, everything was being covered. I had ideological differences with BLM. I didn't like the way in which the deaths of black men were being exploited, for profit, and I saw where they were going with that, and then you had, the nomination of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, which I did not embrace. Up until that point, in terms of voting, so I'm a political independent. But for most of, my voting life, I have voted for Democratic politicians. Okay. And this team, I voted for Hillary Clinton, in 2016. I will say this for the record, I reluctantly voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, because in all honesty, I wasn't going to vote in 2016. I almost sat out, and I voted at the last minute. I allowed fear mongering to get to me in 2016. Anyway, fast forward 2020. I did not like the team of the option, rather, in terms of Democrat and Republican I preferred Bernie Sanders. I would have preferred that in 2020. But you had Biden, you had Kamala Harris, and I, I was not inclined to support either of them, and I did not think that they spoke to what was happening at that particular time, and I thought they were the opposite. So, and we're going to talk about this with my book and what have you. And so, George Floyd and everything, how he got, what happened to him. I'm like, these people are representatives of everything that contributed to George Floyd. It's not just a conservative right-wing thing or what have you. And you see in my book I said that I state that there's a consensus. It doesn't matter where you are politically. There's a consensus that exists around how Black men are understood and perceived in the society. And the Democratic / liberal option is not exceptional in terms of how they have dealt with Black men. So it's like, and I would say this, and I say this on my YouTube page, I called them cops. I called Joe Biden a cop. I called Kamala Harris a cop. And, and I'm like, these are the people who support, Derek Chauvin, the guy who had his foot on the neck of George Floyd. And I'm like, why should I vote for these people? You understand? And so I was very perturbed. I just didn't like it. There was a lot going on in 2020, and what was going on with MSNBC and CNN, all the mainstream stuff. And I'm like, the commentators. So it was out of sheer frustration, and it was like, I'm an academic, and I didn't like what academics were saying at that particular time. I'm like, I dissent. I'm a dissenter. And, you're not going to see me. We here. You're not going to see me on MSNBC. You're not going to see me on CNN. You're not going to see me on any of these, liberal media outlets, that are corporately, funded and what have you. But we got YouTube. And so I was like, I'm going to make my little.
See, this is one of the things. Now, this motherfucker thinks he's the center. He's actually far right. He's not going to tell you who he voted for. He's also not going to mention Fox News or OAN. He's just going to single out MSNBC and CNN. CNN has never been, as far left as, say, in MSNBC. He won't tell you who he voted for. He'll just criticize who everyone else voted for or who he didn't vote for. This is literally why I get to trash dumbasses like these two gentlemen. They say they're center, but actually they are pretty much far right. And never very forthcoming.
Contribution and, create my own little place here and niche and say what I think. And that's what I did.
Okay, I have and you get to this.
I've been sitting here.
I made this option.
Who did he vote for? I didn't hear that part. I heard who he did not vote for, who he was disgusted with. They started with the COVID era, I guess we'll call it. And he just didn't, the George Floyd thing triggered him apparently. And I haven't read his book, so I'm not going to totally condemn him, but it's easy enough to talk about your politics. And if you are a centrist, I guess you would either vote for Biden or Kamala or Trump. There were no centrist candidates. Now, it is possible he could be a leftist, but he doesn't sound like one, because a lot of leftists, aren't into liberals like Biden or Kamala. So it's possible he's not far right. He could be far left. But if he's an academic, he's not a very articulate one.
Myself that there's a real in terms of black people in politics, there's a real shell game, being played over. Okay, but
I don't know if
what you should vote for.
I've always kind of felt that people discount the vote. This thing that a lot of black males did, and you know what, Fred, you're probably right. I think your conclusion is probably more likely, but choosing a couch, I don't see that as a position at all. I was never a big fan and am not a fan of, couch voting or whatever they want to call it. That's a cop-out.
You also have to stop and ask, what policies are they bringing in? What policies are they shepherding in? And a lot of times those questions don't get asked. It's just, this person looks like me. So because they look like me and they're the first X, Y, or Z, we need to throw all of our support behind them. Okay. All right. So that's two more little, how should we say, building blocks.
Well, see, that part of it, dude, just because they share a heritage, no, that doesn't mean you vote for them. Dude, Clarence Thomas literally is, I don't know what he does now, but grew up in my Catholic parish in Savannah. I'm sorry. He has all my respect, but I just have different ideas, and it might even be a generational thing. So no, everyone who, what's the term? Everyone who is skin folk ain't kinfolk. Yeah, that's obvious.
Okay. So in Beyond Death and Jail, you talk about the Black church. Was that a part of your upbringing? And
I figured, Kelvin, he might have a sore throat.
I grew up. My mom,
his voice was kind of gravelly.
My mom was she was Pentecostal. She was a part of non-denominational churches. There's a Pentecostal denomination called the Assemblies of God, and she went to their churches. Those churches tended to be kind of interracial and everything. But she also, she affiliated with certain black churches and what have you. I became acquainted with what we call the Black church in an official sense when I was like 18 years old. And I did this on my own.
Ed, it was really, I started you got a point. Let me just kind of clarify myself. Look, if you don't vote for the top of the ticket, at least vote in your local elections. At least vote in your state elections. If you don't want to vote for the top of the ticket, voting, maybe I'm just misunderstanding, but you can, in my opinion, actually local elections, the Republicans built up their current power base by taking local elections really seriously. And Georgia is a good example. Probably Alabama is a good example. Florida, good example. Politics starts at home.
Affiliated with the National Baptist Convention Incorporated. So that's when I was in college, and there was a church. So to speak to your question, I grew up as a church kid, and I grew up going to church and all of that, and with values that reflective of a church kid and everything like that. Growing up with a mother who was, my mom was a very kind of missionary oriented person and stuff like that. My mom, my mom used to go. I lived in Miami, so my mom, she was missionary. She would go to where the prostitutes were on 79th Street, Miami, and pass out tracts and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I'm in the backseat of the car. You know what I mean? And so she was really into social ministry and everything like that. She was always about feeding poor people and everything. And so I was always with her. So that was my kind of experience. I was in a household with my mother. She believed in, taking care of the poor. She believed in Sunday school and, teaching kids about the good news and stuff like that. She was missionary oriented, and I would just say that I made different choices when I was 18 because I didn't like those interdenominational so-called, mixed race churches, and so I hooked up with a Black Baptist tradition, and wound up becoming a minister. Later on, became an ordained minister and everything like that. And so I was with, traditional Black Baptists, working class Black people, churches ran by Black men, men from another generation, Southern Black men from Georgia and South Carolina. So in Florida, we had this thing. So in Florida, if you were in Miami when I was growing up, you have Blacks from South Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama. So if you were in Liberty City, if you were in Overtown, if you were in Carroll City, the vast majority of the Black people that you encountered, they came from those states. They were from Alabama, South Carolina, and Georgia. And they brought everything from that part of the, the southern, some people call the lower southeast or whatever, with them. You know what I mean? And it was in the church culture and all of that, you know what I mean? And it was Geechee. So we had so we're talking about the South Carolina part, very Geechee. A lot of South Carolinians migrated down. They came from Bamberg, they came from Beaufort, they came from other parts of South Carolina, Charleston, or what have you.
Bamberg.
Because the railroads were very big in South Florida and everything. And they brought the culture.
Hey, Nitish, how you doing?
You know what I mean? And so it was a part of the church culture.
Welcome to the boring dome.
And, the Black Baptists have always historically been the largest denomination in terms of Black people, They always had kind of a captive audience, So I grew up with those traditions, and so those Black men, the Black ministers who had the most effect on me, so these were Black men. They were from the silent generation, they're from the boomer generation and stuff like that, most of them significantly older. So my pastor, Arthur Jackson Jr., he died in 2005. He was in his 70s when he died, and he grew up in the holiness tradition in South Georgia and what have you. Then he became a Baptist. He was probably the most prominent Black ministers in the state of Florida, And I grew up I came up under him. He was the one who brought me in. He was the one who licensed me. He was the one who ordained me. I was a teacher. I taught Sunday school. I worked with the missionaries. I did everything inside the church. You know what I mean? And so I would just say this: when I was 18 years old and I entered into that, I saw things about Black people that previously I hadn't seen, and in a good way. That is I mean, for the first time, I'll be honest with you. So like when I was 18, I mean, I saw organized Black people. I saw, oh my, these are organized Black people. You know what I mean? Under the auspices of this Baptist tradition, Christianity, and all that kind of stuff. And as I went along, I dealt with the Kojics, the Kojics, and the Methodists, and the other people, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But to get to what you were saying, yeah, basically, I was always a church kid. I was a church kid, but I was a different kind of church because I was growing up in Miami, and I had one foot in the church stuff, but I had another foot in the streets, because I was single parent household, running around. All my friends, all my male friends, all of us came from single parent households, all our mamas. My mama was a nurse. My best friend's mama was his mama was a correctional officer. My other friends' mamas, they worked in hospitals or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
The thing is though, and I actually think it honestly sounds like his mother made the right decision. If his father, and she got pregnant and he didn't want to have a kid and she did want to have a kid, well, why would she keep him around? If she decided that, hey, I'll just do it on my own, I don't get, hey, maybe she knew what she was doing. She's got at least one son who's a PhD and supposedly an academic. Sometimes women make right decisions. And the dude's father's never kept up with him. Sounds like his mother actually made the right decision.
We were all being raised by women who were not married. Okay. And I didn't have any siblings growing up. I'm my mom's only child.
And I'm also going to say he seems, and it's just my impression. I can't prove it, but he seems to have a little bit of a thing, a little bit of a tiff with his mother. But, I just think sometimes this, and again, this is just my impression, so please don't think I'm making some grand pronouncement. But dude, this comes off as whining. Okay, your father wanted to abort you and your mother did not. And how do the twain don't meet? So she was unmarried. Well, you know what? His father, had he been a man, would have just said, fuck it. You know what? I will take responsibility. Let's do the right thing. And again, that opens up another can of worms. There are a lot of Black people who don't think marriage, it's the government. If we get married, it needs to be in front of God. The government, I'm not getting married in the government's. So I never hear anyone talk about, and I've met a few Black people who are like that. Marriage is white. So I kind of take a lot of these arguments with a grain of salt. Some of these people just wind up sounding confused or whiny.
And so
Black Knight, salute.
So I had another side and everything like that, and so and I was pulled by the youth culture,
I wouldn't call it an Oedipus complex.
So anyway,
Oedipus. That
I tell people
totally
I had one foot in, one
situation,
foot in the church, one foot outside the church. That's how I grew up, But I would say that.
No, it's not that clear.
It was a balance, and I would say that as I grew older and as I saw, because I have friends who are in prison now. I have a good number of friends who their lives did not.
Dude, Freud was a fool.
Okay, and I would say one of the reasons why, just me personally, I think I've kind of survived is because I kind of attached myself to, certain values and commitments that, kept me out of trouble.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I will share. I'm usually discreet about my private life, but I do have a former plus one who was from there, so I got to experience I saw some of the things that you just described. A single mom, and her mom was in the church quite a bit, and she was into some other things. And then you also in Miami, you also have, it's an international city, literally. So that there's just a lot there for a young person to experience and
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing was, I mean, this was before, people talk about, even today, Miami has this luxury image and South Beach and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I was there at the ground floor, okay, and it was like I know what South Beach was before it became a thing, you know. I mean, I know that whatever debauchery associated with South Beach right now, it was there, it was hidden, it was underground, or what have you. It didn't have the kind of publicity that it has now. You know what I mean? It was a different thing, but I saw it from the ground up. I saw because Miami. I tell people, Miami in the '80s, it was an outlaw city. It was an outlaw city. It was a cocaine city. Cubans and Colombians and Jamaicans and capitalism and all that kind of stuff, man. It was that kind of thing. You know what I mean? We were, New York City was our cousin. They were cousins. It's just Miami at that, when I was growing up, Miami was probably a slightly slower version of New York City. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna squeeze in Ronald's question here. I saw some of this on the news. There are these No Kings rallies. I guess it's an adverse reaction to President Trump. He says, like to know if you heard the speech from Mehdi Hassan at the No Kings rally, where he only mentioned Black women holding down Black people. I don't know if you heard it about any of that.
No, I haven't. And
but I think what this is getting to is the leadership position.
Yeah.
The matrifocal leadership position. That's been anyway. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I hadn't, and in all honesty, I haven't been paying attention to some of that stuff that's happening right now. Yeah, and I'm not surprised that Hassan would talk like that and what have you. I mean, that's just it's a dominant narrative that they've used, and it's just pervasive in liberal media, and in other places as well. So I'm not surprised by that.
Okay. BGS says, simulcasting your show, bringing more eyes. Well, I appreciate that, BGS. Appreciate that. Okay, so yeah, so what you described about your friends' mothers and the mothers in your family all being single, and with what Ray just described, it gets to that bifurcation, that generational shift that happened around the 70s. One more building block question before we dive into the book.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I didn't like I said, I'm from the STEMs, so it wasn't until reading Dr. T.S. Johnson's book and now reading your book that I really started to grasp the power of the humanities and religious studies and cultural studies and sociology, social work. Shout out to EGS. We need to support our scholars. I'm now starting to understand that now what we're seeing is literally the academy has the ability to shape the minds of the young people going in there. So you're hearing stories about young people going in one way, and then they come out and their parents don't recognize them. That's number one. But also, this is where the government policies are coming from. And so those professors, in their research, they have a lot of power to basically control and dictate the future of society. Have you observed that yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that's fabricated. The reality is that. So I'll give an example. So media, you just had this question about Hassan and everything like that. So you have that kind of thing happening because you do have, I'll just say this, you do have black women in media who are products of this type of education, and they carry that into their profession. So I give another example. So, recently you've seen these stories about black women losing their jobs, like 300,000 jobs are being lost. By black women and stuff like that. One of the reasons why you get that type of narrative, here's what you want to think about it. They're not
Wait,
talking
hold it.
about
Was I muted the whole
the total
time?
losses of job and the entire
You know what?
black.
I guess what I need to do is start controlling the volume from StreamYard. I usually just click the button on my microphone. Subscribe to the channel. I'm assuming I'm not muted now. Hold on one sec here. Still doesn't realize. Whatever, Kelvin. Apparently, you've decided to be my tormentor tonight. That's how far your own ass stand is up. Yeah, we hear ya. So anyway, y'all subscribe to the channel, hit the like. If you're new, please subscribe, support the host. This isn't as boring as it might appear. I actually kind of find it fascinating, but at my age, all you get to do is listen to other old men yammer on about their life.
Population. They're only talking about the losses of jobs in terms of black women. And the reason why you get that is that in those arenas, you have people who have been educated to only see things through the lens of, one gender, one population. And
he is absolutely wrong about that. Okay, trained is not educated. Okay, and this is what these fuckers do. People might be trained to use a particular lens for analysis. Educated means you have multiple lenses. Education, like a really good education, is like a Swiss Army knife, right blade for the right cut. Okay, and it really annoys me to hear these half-wits fucking confuse education with training.
So you get researchers who do that, you get journalists who do that, and what have you. And it
No,
goes back to
actually, they're
how
not
trained and how
centrists.
they're educated.
It's not
Rather, I'll
that,
say this.
maybe you're right. They are
In
centrist.
women's
I don't
studies,
know their
in
politics, but I
literary
do hear
studies,
their
in
words.
sociology,
And the idea that you're
in other
trained
areas in my field,
versus
religious studies and what
educated,
have you.
that's
It's just
actually
across
real.
the board.
And he doesn't seem to know
Um,
the difference.
they take
Or he's not
this
educated if he doesn't know
education
the difference, to be honest.
into those professional arenas. So they'll take it, if it's not the media, it's in education kind of writ large, so K through 12. Okay. And so, I mean, one of the reasons now, like Trump administration has been kind of trying to dismantle the Department of Education and all that kind of stuff is because of the relationship between the Department of Education and universities and schools of education in universities, and how schools of education in universities are impacting educational policy. You understand? And so that's
What's
one
up,
arena.
Lupin?
The other arena is
No, I
the
was
realm of
actually
law.
really interested in seeing this
Okay?
particular
It
video.
could be criminal law. It
I
could
don't know
be
how long you've
family.
been here, but apparently the guy on the left, Big Discussion 76, you may already know of him, but he's associated with BGS somehow, an acolyte. But this is actually a fascinating conversation. And by the way, if anybody needs me to drop this link or any link at any time, just let me know. I'm always happy to do that.
Law, civil law, okay? And you have people who have law degrees, lawyers, who are oriented in that way. You understand? And,
Oriented is not education, though.
and they have, and those ideas are there as well. So no, it's a very, very real thing, that you have one population that has been targeted, and it goes back to my thesis about bifurcation over decades, and they have been conditioned intellectually and ideologically in a certain kind of way. And when they become professionals, their conditioning is a part of what they do. So they can't see.
This is
They
bullshit.
can't see the entire population. You know, as I said in my book, if you see it, I said that Black Americans represent more than 40 million people in the United States.
45 or so.
More than 40 million. Okay. If we were to just simply relegate ourselves to these people,
No, I don't think they're
who have these narrow
indoctrinated. I
views,
think they're
you're dealing with
miseducated.
only
There's a book
you're
about
dealing
that.
with at minimum half the population. You're dealing with maybe 21 million out of the 41 million. You know, so you know, Black people 13%. This is the kind of common number that you get in census numbers. 13%. You're a mathematician. 7% female, 6% male. What does it mean when you're only concerned
I'm
about
listening
7%
to him,
out of
Brian. What do you
13%?
think I'm doing?
Everything that you get, all the information that you get about an entire population is tailored according to this 7%.
The fuck
Yeah,
does that
This is
even mean?
miseducation, misinformation.
I just thought about Dr. T.S.N. Johnson's flat blackness there.
Yeah.
You're making assumptions and decisions based upon one gender and spreading it across
That is
the entire group.
dude. Oh.
Yeah.
These guys, see, now this is starting to become clear. Somewhere in there, it's gonna become misogynoir or misogynist or whatever. Dude, this isn't a gender argument. I think, in my opinion, people make too much about gender these days. No. I don't think gender is a driving issue that solves problems. Again, educated people can think in more than one mode. Okay, use gender analysis or whatever when it is a gender problem. And these, I can understand if they're trying to look for some unified theory of a point of view or worldview. I understand that quest, but even that unified theory is going to have all kinds of corollaries. If you've ever written, any sort of piece of code or something like that, you have ways to handle errors. I just these guys are interesting, but not enlightening, at least for me. Now it seems like Brian Nichols, will want to become a subscriber.
The idea that what's good for black women or the black female population, what's good for them is good for everybody.
Obviously not here, Brian.
Which is a fallacious assumption.
You don't speak on it here. You're always welcome to speak here.
Last question before we segue into the book. Religious studies. What made you decide to pursue an academic career in religious studies?
Yeah, so I graduated from Florida International University.
Okay, and by the way, religion is a hard science, apparently. Religion is about as fluid in point of view or critical lens as I can't think of a topic that's more fluid. So you being a religion major, dude, you have your point of view, but now you use a biblical lens, which has some problems.
I was in the social sciences, and at my school, you had the opportunity of earning a degree in two areas. So in my department was a department of sociology and anthropology, and so I was social scientifically oriented at the beginning. And at the beginning, I wanted to do work in terms of social science. Just radically empirical, but I also had these other sensibilities that are not accommodated by the social sciences, in terms of religion and philosophy. And, so when I talk about that, it's like, there is a place where scientific reasoning does have limitations in terms of thinking about how human beings exist in the world. Okay. And so when we talk about belief systems and we talk about, orientations,
thank you.
When we talk about how people actually move in the world, you can't reduce that to empiricism, you know what I mean? Or, the scientific method. So anyway, this whole theology. So
this is becoming just a jumble of a bunch of jargon.
You know what I mean?
A jumble of jargon.
So I didn't want to become. So why did I do religious studies? Is because I didn't want to become a pure social scientist. And I was more inclined towards the theological and philosophical kind of bent that I prered and what have you. And,
I hate to say this, but if you want empiricism, you don't.
I was working in churches and ministry and all that kind of stuff, and I wanted to go. Here's the thing. So I attended a theological school. I attended the Interdenominational Theological Center in Atlanta, Georgia. So I went to a theological school to study, those things and what have you. So that's what happened, and I wanted to become a scholar. I was going, we called it kind of a scholar minister ideal. I was working in churches and all that kind of stuff. And I was into what we call kind of liberation theology, the social gospel, and, dealing and, liberating poor people and stuff like that, and doing it from the standpoint of how I understood Christianity and religion, so that's kind of the basics of how I wound up taking the the path that I did. Mhm.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody, let's segue into Dr. Neal's book. So this is from my perspective. So, and everybody, Dr. Neal put a lot into this book. And I was telling him beforehand, I shared the questions with him. I had to write down some of the vocabulary words, and there's so many. It's a bit of a history book too, because it introduces figures like Bell Hooks. We're going to talk about her, but Orlando Patterson and Clarence Thomas comes up in here, and there's so many people that come up in here. I really had to take detailed notes about what I was going to ask Dr. Neal. So this is a powerful book, and from my understanding, it really pulls back the curtains and outlines how, and more importantly, why this thing we call Black America has spiraled out of control and in many instances fractured. Emphasis on the word fractured in the post-civil rights era. We lived through a lot of this as Gen Xers.
Hey, CKJ3, I have that on my radar. So I don't know that we'll get to it tonight, but I'll show it in the morning.
Though we didn't know what we were living through as time was transpiring, I would argue that our folks didn't really know what was transpiring and why things look the way they do now. So Dr. Neal, just briefly, what compelled you to write Beyond Death in Jail?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, I would say let's go back to 2012. 2012, with the killing of Trayvon Martin, and he was killed on February 26th of 2012, and it was his murder and the aftermath, what happened ensuing to his murder.
Holy shit! This must
that
hold on. This must be some sort of textbook or something. Beyond Death in Jail is $93. Wow. I hope he is getting rich. Hold on one sec here. And I've got, I need to clear this timer. So that's his book, folks. $93. We might have to put together some sort of pooling of funds to afford his book. Let's see what's in there. Maybe it's cheaper for Kindle. Solutions for anti-black misandry, flat blackness, and blackmail death. Holy shit. The Man Knot's way cheaper, that's for sure. So it's $90 on Kindle and almost $94 on for the actual, I guess it's a hardcover. I hope it is. So let's see, how many pages is this? It's got to be a textbook. Working in a tradition of blackmail studies associated with the philosopher of race, Tommy Curry. Okay, I got you. And this dude is an associate professor of religion at Wake Forest. So that's actually a really good school, if you're into religion. Good for him. Okay, this dude, it's 200 pages and $93. Holy shit! I'm gonna have to put this on my Christmas list. I can't afford that shit. Ooh boy. you know, how many black males, if he is actually right, that book's almost unaffordable. Hmm. Interesting. All right, well, let's get back to this rich dude peddling a book.
And it pushed me because Trayvon Martin, you know, he was 17 years old. And
Hey, that's funny, Clarence. I'll check it out.
An entirely new century. We're not in, this is not 1955 when Emmett Till, you know, was lynched, killed, and murdered, destroyed. Okay, it was not that, you know, and that's like,
what's up, John?
This is Emmett Till, and up until that point, there was a pervasive consensus that this was not the reality for black boys and men, and you know, this was not a masculine reality. That up until that point, it was assumed that this could not be this could not happen. With all of this dynamics and what have you, and I'm speaking from the standpoint of an academic. So here's
that's the Internet Archive. Okay.
There had been great resistance in my realm in academia towards
doesn't seem to be on the
in the realities
Archive
of black masculinity. You know, and Dr. This is why, you know,
well, that's fine. I'll figure out how to
here,
get it.
and we got Dr. Tommy Curry and everything doing their things.
If I buy
there
this
was
book,
hostility
I'm gonna be bitter.
towards engaging the realities of black men and boys in the United States. It was across the board. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes something horrific like Trayvon Martin.
Hey, CK, I hope it does upset some people. That would be wonderful.
You know, and I hate to say this, but in terms of the black population, death is so normalized amongst us, like black male death is so normalized and so ordinary and regular and mundane, that in order for a lot of us to think twice about it, you need, like, you know, it's not enough to have one black person hanging from a tree, or one black man. You got to have at least 10 black men hanging from a tree to get us to wake up. That's kind of, because we're very reactionary. And it happened during the Obama era and everything like that. And here's the thing. I had come to the conclusion that this regime, and I'm going to say this, there was a regime of censorship and repression in my world, my academic world, about these issues. And that I needed to speak directly to this regime. I needed to criticize this regime. And I'm like, well, this is no longer, this is not acceptable. We can't sit around here and play with this, play with death. Because up to that point, in my mind at that time, we were playing with death. And that's what that's kind of what sparked it. That's the beginning. The other part of it is that I realized that in my lifetime, this is something that was a part of my lifetime. So it's like, no, it's not just about Trayvon Martin. This is much bigger. And the theme of death in jail has characterized my entire lifetime. And, going way back to, being 18 years old and living in Miami and seeing what was happening and watching people die and go to jail and being fearful of my own existence and mortality, my own mortal issues. I mean, there's no guarantee. And I said this in the book. I mean, in terms of my own context, if you make it to the age of 40, you've achieved something. You've achieved something as a black man. You understand? And and I say that given the fact that so many knocked down before the age of 25. You understand? And so it was like, this book is really, apart from Trayvon Martin, but connected to it, it is the culmination. I decided to write it. It was a culmination of what I have been thinking through since I was 18 years old. So, and I say this in the book, this book represents what I have thought about for the bulk of my adult life. Trayvon Martin in 2016, not 2016, but 2012, he's a marker. He's a significant historical, political marker. Trayvon is a turning point, because it's with Trayvon that you have, quote unquote, Black Lives Matter and all that kind of stuff. A brand new generation. Because it's absurd to me that in 2012, we have to go back to 1955. It's like, what is this? A 17-year-old. I'm an adult. I'm a full-blown adult in my 30s at this time. You understand? And I'm like, this is crazy. This is absurd to me. You know what I mean? And there's not enough concern with among the people who have the same education as I have, who have the same access, or you want to call it privilege, intellectually. And somebody need to say something about it. And so that's how the book was born.
Okay, give me a second here. So it looks like BGS says we have 112 watching here. Okay, so hello to everyone over on BGS's platform. Thank you for
BGS here. More shout out to BGS.
Yep, support your scholars. Yeah, if you have questions or if anyone wants to super chat the channel, that's always welcome. BGS says link the book doc. I've included the link to Amazon in the description box. I'll drop it in the chat right now. Yeah. Okay.
Well, my goodness, it seems everybody has left.
The decade of death. So
which is my
cover a lot.
My cue to leave.
And a lot of people come up, but the backdrop of the book is essentially the decade of death.
Can
so we
always
mentioned
pick this up
Trayvon
tomorrow.
But we know that other individuals met their untimely demises in that decade. So you were seeking to capture all of them, right? With that?
Yeah. So the thing was, so the decade of death is a dominant kind of theme in the book from beginning to end, and it's the decade of death because this is the decade from beginning with Trayvon, 2012. February the 26th of that year, to the anniversary of his death, which is in 2022, February the 26th. You have 10 years. You've got 10 years of police violence, 10 years of violence in terms of people who are not law enforcement people killing black. So you've got Tamir Rice, you've got Michael Brown, you've got Alton.
Okay, well, it seems I have worn out my welcome with this, so we will pick this up tomorrow. I have dinner, a couple more things I need to do, and then I think I'm going to head over to T's chat. That way I can read and listen to her show. So we will see you all in the morning. Probably should be around 7:45 or 8 Eastern time. Take it easy, folks. I'll find it, Clarice. I'm not, I actually have a stack of stuff I need to read, so I'm in no hurry to read it. If I get around to it at all. I've got The Man Not, so I can't imagine he'd be better than Tommy Curry. So anyway, Clarice, it's good to see you here, by the way. probably forgot to say hello. But anyway, everybody, I will be back in the morning thanks to CKJ and Kelvin. Kelvin, my little nemesis there. John, of course. Lupin, Black Knight, and Brian Nichols, Slick Rick, all the all the usual suspects. Hopefully I'll see y'all in the morning, and I will get some rest. So y'all take it easy.